Hello, everyone. Welcome back to ChaiCast. We're back after a short little hiatus. March Madness is an actual thing, but now we're back to a regular schedule. So we're very excited to introduce our very first guest. This guest works primarily in the field of robotics. According to NASA, robotics is the study of robots. Robots are machines that can be used to do jobs. Some robots can do work by themselves. Other robots must always have a person telling them what to do. And so robotics is relevant to artificial intelligence because the field of AI enables robots to be intelligent, quote unquote, and do work by themselves. So today we have Karthik with us. Karthik is currently a roboticist in Ember Lab at the University of Michigan, where he is building legged robotics for biomechanical and evolutionary research into legged locomotion of animals. He recently earned an MS in robotics from Michigan, where he previously earned a BSE in mechanical engineering and computer engineering. Later this year, he will join NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory as a mechatronics engineer, where he will be building the next generation of robots to explore our solar system. Overall, Karthik's interests are in creating capable robots as tools of scientific discovery, specifically in mechanism design and controls. So, Karthik, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here.
Hello. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about my work. Yeah, so let's just jump right into it, right?
Yeah, so can you tell us a bit more about your cultural or family background? Anything you're willing to share, so siblings, whether you're like a child of immigrant or you immigrated yourself, what parts of the country your parents might be from. Yeah, anything you want to share.
Yeah, certainly. So I'm an immigrant myself, along with my whole family from India. I was born in Kerala in India, so I'm a South Indian, but really my family's from Karnataka. I moved to the States when I was really young, though. I was about 3. I've got an older brother. He's about 6 years older than me, and he went to our rival school. He went to Ohio State. So that's yeah. But
is he also an engineer?
He was an engineer, by training for his undergrad, but now he actually does kind of production management and logistics.
Nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my parents are doctors of medicine.
Wow, very fancy.
Wow. Full family of professionals doing all sorts of great things in the field of STEM. So you came here when you were 3. Do you remember a lot from before then when you were in India?
No, hardly anything. Yeah, so I have photos and I have some kind of faint memories, but I'm never sure if I just kind of project them into what my parents tell me about when I was a kid. But for the most part, no, but I have been back to India several times, and yeah, I enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. Do you go back pretty often? Just visit family and stuff?
Unfortunately, no. For the last 7 years, I've been quite busy with college, essentially, and school during the school year and internships during the summers. So last time I went was, I guess, 4 years ago, and hopefully I'll go again within the next year.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awesome. So since you came here when you were 3, it sounds like you did your entire K-12 education in the United States. I guess, what was that like as a South Asian child? Growing up in a South Asian household, but then going through an American education system with different values?
It was certainly interesting. So I enjoyed it for one. And yes, I did do my entire K-12 in the U.S. But we did move around a lot. My family immigrated to California and stayed there for a bit. And then we stayed outside Detroit, Michigan for a bit. And then we're in Kentucky for a bit. And then Ohio is actually where I did most of my K through 12, 4th grade to high school. For all of those situations, I was kind of a minority demographic. I was never in a majority Indian place. And so it was interesting and a very valuable experience. A common thing amongst all my South Asian friends is okay, we have to succeed. We have to do really well in school, and so that was like always a thing in my school. Like, was this pressure to succeed, like being like an immigrant and kind of like representing your culture and your family and stuff in like in a new environment. But also, you know, being kind of having a different background is very valuable to me because I could like experience different cultures and like family environments and you know like ideologies like on a daily basis between you know being at home or hanging out with my friends, being at school. You know that's kind of just helped me be more like critical and understand our society better and having like wider perspectives. So that's kind of how my childhood went in school. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. No, I can definitely relate to the RuPaul's laughing too. I can relate to the, you know, expectation, having high expectations of yourself growing up South Asian and trying to do your absolute best. And I feel like the pressure is also higher because it's like your parents and in this case you as well have come to a new country and you want to set yourself up for success and the generations after that as well. So it can feel daunting at times, but it's also rewarding.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Did you think that moving around was challenging? Because I was thinking about this recently and I counted how many schools I've been to. I'm currently at my 10th school.
Whoa,
And
that's
yeah, from K through 12 plus college. So this is my 10th one. So yeah, I was curious if you thought like moving was challenging or if you appreciated like kind of experiencing different types of schooling.
yeah, I'd say it was challenging because I mean, when you're a kid, it's kind of hard to like make friends if you have to move around a bunch. I was lucky that like kind of I settled when, or my family settled when I was still pretty young. Like we got to Ohio when I was in fourth grade, so I had like a solid 8 years there where I made really close childhood friends. It was a little harder on my brother, so my brother's 6 years older than me, so he like had to move around when he was a little older. So I think that was tougher on him in retrospect, like I'm glad I did it just because I feel more comfortable with like moving and like trying new environments.
No, I can relate to your older brother having to move around so much at a older age because it was almost the same thing for me. My sister and I we both moved around quite a bit until I started high school. So for her, she was in like first or second grade or something. So she's been in the same school district since then. So I can totally relate.
Hmm. So RuPaul, did you also just 10 schools? That's a lot of schools. So I'm guessing you also like moved around.
Yep, the last move apart from college was after my sophomore year of high school. I went from California to Colorado, so that's probably the biggest one. And yeah, I think especially in high school, it can like what you said, making friends, that can be like especially challenging, especially when a lot of people in high school have like their childhood friends, so they've grown up with the same people, and you're literally the new kid. But now that I'm older, yeah, I can like appreciate it more, like having moving around and stuff. It doesn't like phase me as much. So like when people went to college for undergrad, like getting used to like being in a new place and everything was kind of more shocking to them than it was to me. So yeah,
Mhm.
Hmm.
appreciation later on, but in the moment it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we become more used to change and stuff, which is a good thing.
Yeah. It's more specifically going into education. So where did your motivation or interest in robotics and engineering come from?
Honestly, nothing too creative, unfortunately, but I kind of like typical boy things. Like I enjoyed playing with like RC toys and like I liked cars and basically anything that moved. Um, Also, just like helping my parents, fix things in the house. So yeah, I just kind of enjoyed things that move and like building things, see how they work. And also, I had like older cousins pursuing engineering, so like it was already in my brain as something that I could do, and I think they pushed me towards it a bit. Yeah, now I kind of view engineering differently than just like building things, but that's how I got into it.
So you mentioned you have older cousins in engineering, and your brother also did engineering too. Do you feel like their support, and maybe I think you already touched on this a little bit, but how did their support help you in your journey? And looking back, do you think that their mentorship and help played a big role?
Yeah, well, so there's kind of like two parts to it. So one is even like being aware of your options. So like I know a lot of people that I meet who are only learning kind of at the end of their college experience, like all the different things that you could do. So like I was lucky to like know about this as an option, like doing engineering. Just like having knowledge of that as an option and like knowing that it's like doable. It's not something I need to be intimidated about. Like plenty of people in my family have done it. It's like a routine thing. That was important and like made me feel like comfortable and natural with it. Yeah, yeah. So like I'm glad I had that in my family.
So even engineering is like pretty broad, right? Like from biomed to like electrical or yeah, just straight up mechanical engineering. So was there something that led you directly to robotics, or were like your older cousins already in related fields in robotics?
No, so most of my older cousins are basically in software.
Mm.
I went into college planning on doing mechanical, and I did. But I also, so at University of Michigan, where we all went, everyone has to take like programming one if you're in the engineering school.
Mhm.
Um, I enjoyed it, so like I did the CS minor because of that, and then basically like my friend who was a TA for like programming three like egged me on to like make it a double major. So I ended up doing like ME and and a CS double major because like I planned it out and it's like, oh, this is actually feasible without too much extra time. And so like at the same time, one of the reasons I joined Michigan, like I came to Michigan at all, was because there's like a really strong design team culture. So like a lot of engineering
Oh yeah.
students do design teams where they work on a student-run team to build something for a competition. So this is like a pretty common engineering school thing. I joined one that was robotics focused, which was it's called Michigan Mars Rover, and basically the challenge is to create this like 50-kilogram outdoor robot to do things in the desert that are similar to what a rover might do, like on Mars, to assist astronauts, like in a hypothetical case. So I joined that team because someone else in my dorm was on it, and they're like, "You should do this," and I was looking for something to put on my resume, essentially. I ended up like totally loving it, but also kind of understanding the what it takes to solve engineering problems is pretty wide beyond just mechanical. So like I also kind of had this in mind when I was getting into computation, computer science and stuff. I eventually transitioned that to computer engineering instead of computer science, so more of a focus on embedded systems because these were all kind of essential to the success of the rover team. So it's kind of good to have that as like a sandbox to practice what I was learning in school, and that like really reinforced my passion for these topics.
From what I know about you, you've already worked at JPL for internships and stuff. Did that, go hand in hand where you were on M Rover, so you wanted to go work at JPL or
It did, yeah. So there were like two things that led me to JPL. So one was M Rover. That was actually the second thing. The first thing was as a freshman, I did this undergraduate research experience, basically through something called MDP at University of Michigan in the space research department at University of Michigan, and I worked on some like instrumentation for basically like plasma measurements.
Mhm.
So like atmospheres of ions are really common around planets and around the Earth as well. So like these are instruments that are commonly flown on spacecraft. So I was working with someone who's like in the space industry as a as a professor, and kind of he's Dr. Justin Casper. He's the one who kind of let me know that JPL was an option. And I got interested in that, yeah, at the same time as like M Rover, the Rover team, and the challenges, the technical challenges, just seemed really interesting, like necessitated creativity. So that was exciting to me. Yeah, so that's how I pursued JPL.
That's really
Cool.
awesome. And you've done a lot. like research and M Rover and now you're going to JPL and you're already working in a lab too now. So that's really, really awesome. Going back to identity stuff, how do you think your identity as a South Asian immigrant or just South Asian in general has played a role in your career decisions and just overall journey and your interests, professional and personal interests?
That's a good question. I mean, so I think the biggest part is having role models in STEM. Like I was kind of saying, like it's pursuing engineering is like a common career choice for South Indians, I feel anyway, and is that's helped me feel like comfortable with doing it basically. And also it's like nice to like go to a workplace and like see people who are to have the same background but also like who have totally different backgrounds. So I go to like in my classes but also at JPL, there are people who have similar stories to me, like immigrating from India, and it's nice to talk to them about like our common experiences. And it kind of always surprises me because I don't frequently talk about it. Most of my friends are not Indian. Most of my friends are, representative of like the demographics here. So yeah, it's nice.
I guess it's like a follow-up. I'm curious because we were talking about K through 12 earlier. Were most of your educational experiences in schools where you were one of the only South Asians, or were you ever in any system where there were a lot of South Asians? Because I've kind of gone through different school systems where one of them might have all Indian people or all South Asian people, and then other school systems I'm like the only one.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, pretty much like all of my education from K through 12 into college has been in like less than 10% Indian like areas and environments. Probably less than like 5% realistically. I'm trying to think of my high school, like how many. So I graduated with like about 400 people, and I think maybe like 20 of us were Indian. Yeah, something like that.
I saw earlier that you had like a glass of like a brown drink. Was that chai?
It was not. Yeah, it should have been actually. It was not chai, unfortunately. I do like chai. This was coffee. So I'm from South India. I don't know about you guys. Are you guys like South Indian? North
I'm not
Indian?
South Indian, but I like filter coffee from South Indian restaurants.
Right. Yeah. So like South India is really as a really heavy coffee area. Like a lot of coffee is grown in South India, like in Karnataka and Kerala and stuff. So yeah, I kind of grew up drinking both. I mostly drink coffee now because it's just like more accessible here. But I do make chai for special occasions with like whole spices and nice tea and stuff. And sometimes I do it for my roommates.
Nice. But what about you? Well, we've talked about this, but
Yeah.
do you like chai or coffee?
Yeah, I've been mostly a coffee person, but I will have chai every now and then.
Yeah, I don't really drink coffee that much. Chai is my go-to.
I can't really talk to people until I have coffee. That's the main issue.
Yeah. I don't know. I just also feel like I don't need coffee most of the time. I'm usually pretty peppy and energetic most of the time anyway.
No, as I've been getting older, my reliance on coffee and caffeine in general is just like only grown, and that's how my whole family is. Like my parents drink coffee or tea like 4 times a day or something. Maybe not anymore. They used to, but yeah.
Do you have any favorite like home cooked meals when you go home or that you make?
Oh yeah, certainly. That's definitely like my favorite part of going home. And it's usually like the simple stuff that I enjoy the most, like masrana, which is in Kannada. So Kannada is the language in Karnataka. It's basically like yogurt rice. So it's like Indian yogurt, which as you guys know, it's like kind of sour, like kind of like Greek yogurt ish. It's like nothing. It's not like Yoplait. But anyway, yeah, just with rice and like salt and like if it's the summer, like putting up like cut up grapes or like pomegranate seeds in it. It's really good, like salty and sweet. And yeah, in South India, that's usually like the last thing you eat for a big meal. It's like a digestive, I guess. And then I also miss so we don't do this as much at home when I go to like my parents' house, but like in India, I definitely try to get as much street food as I can. So like pani puri, I really like. Yeah, like chaat in general. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. Do you say golgappe or do you say pani puri?
I say pani puri. Yeah, I've never heard what you just said. Yeah, I just say pani puri. What'd you say, golgappe?
Yeah,
I don't say
I've like heard both in my life, like almost equally.
Yeah, I've heard. I actually don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know if it's Golgappe or Golgappa or what it is, but I say Pani Puri too.
I feel like
But
I've heard all versions of intonations and whatever you
yeah, I like
Right.
Pani Puri too. Yeah. What about you, Rupal? What's your favorite like home cooked?
That's tough. I mean, I'm allergic to all nuts and coconut, so that already like cuts out
Whoa.
a lot of things. Growing up, my parents didn't know about allergies, so for a long time they thought I can only eat American food like pizza and I don't know, whatever, like burritos and all the like more, I guess, simplistic, less spiced up things. And then we found out I have allergies, so then I got to eat, I guess, a larger variety of Indian food. Um, Paneer has always been a classic favorite, but I guess things that I get purely at home, like things I wouldn't want at a restaurant. Yeah, stuff that my mom can only make like the right way, I guess. I really like her khichdi, so like dal and lentils, kind of blended up with a bunch of spices. And I also really like curry, so that's like, ooh, I don't know how to explain. I don't know any of the ingredients in English, but it's like if you have like pakore in like this yellow like gravy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just such a variety with Indian food. Like, I think having a favorite home cooked meal is like it's very hard to choose because there's just so much. There's so many things you can have. Yeah, for me it depends. I mean, I don't know. It's like same thing. I like basically everything. I'm Gujarati and I really like tepla, so I'm just gonna say tepla for my answer.
Safe choice. Yeah,
Yeah, safe
it's a good one.
choice. But I also really like pani puri. I like khichdi. I like dal and all that stuff too. Going back to more career related stuff. So you're working at Ember Lab right now at U of M. Can you tell us a little bit more about it and what you're currently working on there?
Yeah, certainly. So I've been in Ember Lab under Dr. Talia Moore for almost 2 years now. Talia is actually like a biologist by training, so she holds a PhD in biology, but she's a professor of robotics here at University of Michigan, or mechanical engineering technically. And basically, like what our lab does is use robots to investigate biomechanical hypotheses, or also like evolutionary hypotheses. So this is like a pretty diverse set of things. So, for example, like someone in our lab is working on like simulating, making a robot that simulates like different rodent movements to like understand how specifically the movement of the rodent affects their predation avoidance. Basically, so making a robot that we're hoping hawks are going to chase, so we have access to some hawks, and
Wow.
Oh, nice. Whoa.
yeah, yeah. So to see how like so for example there are some rodents that are really predictable, so they have to spend most of the day hiding, but there are some rodents that move like really fast and unpredictably, so they can like roam around during the day and avoid getting eaten by hawks. Or at least the hypothesis is like, or the thing to be tested is how much does specifically the movement contribute to their success in these environments. And the idea is, well, we think it's a lot. The project I actually work on is on a different side of things, which is about locomotion. So I work on building legged robots to study how like the shape of an animal, or what we call morphology, affects their ability to locomote. So there's like a wide field of legged robots that are out there right now. So most people have seen videos of Spot from Boston Dynamics. It's like a really successful legged robot that like, can dance and stuff. And there's a number of others, and they all kind of have a standardized design that don't really look like animals. So they have like simplified legs. They've got identical legs for like all four of them. Whereas like animals have different forelimbs and hind limbs, and have like a wide spectrum of proportions across even just looking at mammals, but like across all animals, like a very diverse set of proportions. So it's tough to test, how that affects animals directly, because you can't ask animals specifically to do particular things, but you can ask a robot to do that. So like we can build a robot. We are building a robot where we can kind of change how it looks very easily and change how it's controlled. And we can look at how properties of its locomotion change, like at the simplest level, like energy usage, its ability to like accelerate in different directions, things like that. Yeah. So we just built our robot, and like it can stand on its own for the first time, and soon it will be like walking. Yeah.
Wow,
That's super cool.
so cool.
It's a lot of like, I guess, very bio-inspired locomotion side of robotics, and you're, I
Certainly,
guess,
yeah.
answering bio or evolutionary questions, looking at it from the side of robotics.
Yeah, so we're using the robots as tools. And then kind of a
Okay.
side effect of this is like we're also going to probably learn some things about how to design robots better, or like how to
hmm
specialize them for particular tasks. Yeah.
Can you also talk a little bit about your like JPL internships or space robotics work that you've done?
Yeah, certainly. So, like Isha said in the intro, kind of the common theme between like what I do is like I think it's interesting to use engineering and robots towards like some pursuit in scientific discovery. So JPL is the same thing in like a totally different flavor. It's not biomechanics. Also, okay, we've said JPL a few times. JPL is NASA Jet Propulsion Lab, which
Oh,
has
yeah.
which has nothing to do with jet propulsion anymore. Really, it's that's like a vestigial name. JPL is basically like NASA's main center for robotics, and JPL makes the Mars rovers, along with a whole host of other spacecraft for Earth as well as for the whole solar system. Right now, there's a rover on Mars that landed just 2 years ago called the Perseverance rover. So as an intern, I worked on that rover in 2017 and 2018, and specifically I worked on like the what's called the remote sensing mast, which is the tower on the front of the rover that has like this big box with cameras on it. Kind of looks like the head of the rover. So yeah, it's called Remote Sensing Mast, RSM. So basically, I helped design and test that and get it ready for flight. So I'll be going back to JPL in July, so like in a few months, to join probably the Mars Sample Return project. So right now, the Perseverance rover is collecting Mars dirt and like putting it in tubes and sealing those tubes, and it's leaving those tubes on the surface of Mars. The next mission, called Mars Sample Return, is a lander that has like a mini rover on it that's going to go and like grab those tubes and then put them into a steel ball, or like this like heavy duty ball, and then it's going to put that ball, this capsule, onto a rocket that's going to take off from Mars to bring the samples back to Earth. So that'll be like the first sample return from Mars, like our first current sample of Mars dirt. And the incentive is like, the current rovers have tons of instrumentation on them, like spectrometers, gas chromatographs, like tons of different things to like analyze these samples in situ. But ultimately, like those instruments cannot be as good as like full labs here on Earth. So we want to bring back samples to do like way more rigorous analysis of these of Mars. That problem is like really complicated and requires a lot of automated mechanisms. So yeah, basically I'll be going there to design mechanisms and control them to do these pretty complex operations in retrieving samples.
That's super cool. And I like that you touched on how it's a pretty complex problem with space robotics and doing the automated control. Can you, I guess, go a little deeper into that? So what are some challenges that are maybe specific to space exploration robotics and working in that sort of unstructured environment that maybe other robotic applications on Earth don't necessarily have to deal with as much?
Certainly, yeah. Doing stuff on Mars or in space in general is pretty difficult, and really the focus is on reliability, like above all else. So on Earth, we can make like pretty reliable machinery, like cars and our infrastructure and stuff, but it still kind of has to rely on routine maintenance. Like we have to change the oil in our cars, etc. You can't really do that. You can't send a mission just to like fix something you put in Mars before. Everything just kind of has to work. The whole robot design focuses around reliability and redundancy, and also testability. the reliability makes sense. The testability is something that might not come to mind immediately. It's very important when you're designing stuff for space that you have the ability to test everything important about it on Earth. It's kind of a different set of cost functions, or like a different set of trade-offs than we might have for designing something for Earth.
Mm-hmm. So then, how do you go about validating and testing those space robots? Because that's different than doing it for autonomous cars and for other applications.
Yeah, it is, because like fundamentally the environment's different here on Earth. Like the gravity's different. We have an atmosphere. The temperature's different. So like a lot of the testing is done in environmental simulation chambers. So like vacuum chambers that are brought down to like really cold temperatures that are representative of other places in the solar system. Sometimes there's like complex pulley systems to like offload weight to simulate like low gravity. So you can only get so close though. So you also need to do like modeling to say something about how likely, like if you get this positive result on Earth, like how likely is that to translate to Mars, given everything else we know about Mars or whatever planet. So that's pretty tough. So generally like these spacecraft are really, really overbuilt. Yeah. So like the Mars rover is like 1,000 kilograms. So it's huge. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's kilograms, not pounds.
Yeah, so it's a metric ton basically. Yeah, which is
wow, that's really cool. And I bet a lot of the work that you do and that Roboticist in the space field do is gonna make things easier in other robotics applications, because you're dealing with extreme environments and just a whole different set of parameters, I guess.
Yeah, there's like doing things that when you have a goal of, okay, so like here on Earth, if you want to build robots, you're probably doing it for like some industrial application and something that's, production motivated or like profit motivated and stuff like that. So that leads to different solutions than when you're doing stuff for, for just scientific discovery, which is really kind of pleasant. Like it's the risks that you're interested in taking are like way different when you're designing something to do science in space. And that kind of leads to new design spaces that wouldn't naturally get explored like here for industrial applications or like consumer applications. Just having like those different incentives and like different ideas of what's worth doing leads to like some pretty interesting things that just like wouldn't be explored here.
I think that's one of the coolest parts about space exploration missions in general is like, I think NASA calls them spin-offs, and they publish the spin-offs for every year. I always like going through them because they're super cool, and it's exactly like you said, it's like solutions to like Earth problems that come from space, because it's like attacking a problem from a different angle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess as like a side question, I'm curious if you think like there's I guess this idea that autonomous robots will take away jobs. How true do you think that is within your realm of work in robotics?
I get that question like kind of frequently. I don't have like great answers to it, but the thing I wish everyone like understood is that robots like really suck right now. Like they're really not good at very many things. I think of robotics as like just kind of a natural step in other things that we've already done to improve our daily lives, right? Like, so, okay, maybe this is like a really simplistic kind of case, but, cars replace buggy drivers, and like stable people. So like there's kind of, but overall, like cars improve like a lot of things about our daily lives, things like safety, but also like obviously getting around, it's a primary application. I think robots have the ability to like solve a lot of problems for us that are just going to make everyone's lives better. The other thing is that I think most technological improvements that help us are really behind the scenes, really kind of affect us in small ways every day that accumulate to like an overall kind of better experience with life. So something that affects me like really kind of frequently is like cashless payment. Like that just speeds up my shopping experience, like when I go grocery shopping or whatever. And that's like a really small thing every day, but it's something that's just makes everything a little bit easier. So robots are kind of, I think, going to do the same thing. Like they're going to end up doing a lot of things that we don't really care about that are not going to get in our way. So I kind of look forward to that.
I love your answer. I think Isha and I were recently talking about this question, and we talked about
Yeah.
also if we go back to earlier in the very beginning, Isha said that robots are machines that can be used to do jobs. And so we were talking about how dishwashers, dryers, for your clothes and washers, those are then robots. And we have basically fully accepted those robots into our lives, right? And they took away jobs of people who manually wash dishes or do your laundry.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like it's making daily life easier, I guess. And that is something that, society has generally accepted. And with the current pace of like robotics, I guess like innovations and things like that, I think the same thing will happen with other future innovations that we don't know about. So it's not going to be, I think, a sudden like, millions of people are out of jobs because of a new innovation. I think it's going to be a lot more gradual than that.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, so I like what you said about dishwashers being robots because they are, and I think that's important to note because like robots aren't a totally different class of machine in my mind, and in fact, like our vehicles are like half robots already. Like if
Hmm.
you've ever gotten in a car that had the option to like turn off traction control and like anti-lock brakes, like
Hmm.
it's like way harder to drive. We already have things like cars doing a lot for us already in a robotic manner.
Yeah. No, and I like what you mentioned about the traction control because I think there are also some different tasks or jobs, if you will, that humans don't currently have, like, traction control.
I guess in general, it's like these tasks that someone does, but it's like to help them do that task better. So like lane assistance
Yeah.
or the car I just got, it does like a gentle automatic brake if I'm getting way too close to an object. So I always get to feel it when I'm going into the garage because it's like, you can't be this close to your garage.
I think it's not going to take away the job of doing deep space exploration, which is what you're working on,
Oh,
because
yeah.
sending humans to into deep space is not safe. Maybe sending robots might actually be a better thing to do.
Yeah, it's basically the only way to do a lot of things in space. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I think you mentioned a bit earlier that you will be going back to JPL in the near future. I guess is there something more you want to elaborate there, or if you have plans for even further out, like 5 year, 10 year plans, is there something you want to share?
I'm not sure. So something I've been interested in is like entrepreneurship. Like I like the idea of just trying to do something with a small team, like on my own. I've thought about in the future making a startup. I don't have any like kind of golden idea. I just kind of like the idea of like trying to do something like that. I think it's likely that I'll pursue a doctorate, like a PhD later in life as well. Like one, if I want to stay at JPL, like that kind of experience is valuable because so JPL is also part of Caltech. So it is like an academic institution and the research mindset is important and valuable there. So I think it's likely I'll pursue a doctorate, but I might not. I'm not too stressed about making the decision. I think like when it comes time to try something new, like I'll have a good feeling of what I think is best to do for me. But I also might end up just kind of being at JPL lifelong. I'm fine with that too. I'm pretty happy to kind of just like go with the flow. Yeah.
That's super awesome. So then, you've done a lot. You have a lot to look forward to. Do you have any advice for our listeners, and particularly South Asians aspiring to work in the field of AI and specifically robotics?
Yeah, I certainly do. So, okay, so I was talking about earlier how I came into school, into like college, wanting to do mechanical engineering, and then I ended up also doing like computer engineering. And I was like talking about kind of flippantly, but that was actually, super valuable. And I think the most important part of that experience was having like a broad perspective in a technical sense, but also like in other senses. But getting into like a complex field like AI or robotics or just kind of engineering and science in general it's pretty intimidating. And the analogy like I think of is like when you're getting into something new and complex like this, it's kind of like moving to a new place. like a new area. So like when you're getting around at the beginning, like you're probably really reliant on like Google Maps, basically, or whatever. So when something happens, like a road closure or like something that is kind of unmodeled in your head, unexpected, it's like stressful, right? So or like also like cooking. So I love cooking. Like when you're learning how to cook and you're following recipes, like when you're starting out and you're reliant on recipes and like maybe you're missing an ingredient or like you forget to do a step, like it's stressful. Like what do I do? Right. But once you learn more about like this new area you're in, or like try cooking from a bunch of different cuisines, and like learn more about cooking, it's really chill. Like when something unexpected happens, it's much easier to think on your feet and like come up with something creative when you have some like broad perspectives about the area. So and in that process, you kind of also learn some underlying patterns to what you're doing. So engineering is kind of the same way, and anything complex is kind of the same way. Like it'll feel like you have no idea how to tackle something new or unexpected, but learning a broad set of topics will help you like think on your feet and come up with something interesting. That's why I did like the dual degree for the like mechanical engineering and computer engineering. You don't have to go so far as to like get 2 different degrees, but just yeah, doing things that are outside your comfort zone and not being afraid to fail at it. So back to like the analogy, it's okay if you get lost every once in a while. Like you'll be able to make your way. It's okay to like burn your dinner. Like you'll you'll have another dinner. It's okay. So yeah, especially when you're in college and when you're in your early career, like failing is way more okay than you might think. But yeah, so get a broad perspective in a technical sense, but also like in a worldly sense. And then the second thing is like do projects. So like I did this rover project when I was an undergrad, and that was pretty key to like I described it as a sandbox. Have something like that where like it's something where you can try new things, where you can iterate and get creative, maybe do some stupid stuff. I did plenty of stupid stuff on rover. Yeah, so that's a very valuable thing. So yeah, I'd say that's my advice if you want to get into AI or robotics.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. Thanks for sharing that. Before we wrap up, is there any other thing you wanted to chat about?
Not really. Like I'm super glad to be on this show, and I think we've had a good discussion here, and I appreciate the good questions, and yeah, it's been fun to like talk about the stuff I do.
Awesome. So, yeah, thank you for joining us today and answering all of our questions and sharing your story with us. We really appreciate your time and advice.
Certainly.
Yep, so
Thank you.
that wraps up this episode. Thank you to our listeners, and we'll see you next time.